Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 7th of October, comes to you from Barcelona in Spain. And we start to look at markets. We're seeing a bit more green on the screen this morning. So yesterday was a pretty bad day for markets, but we're seeing a bit of a recovery. This is the dollar. This is my weekly, daily, and 60-minute chart, long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market with the corresponding point and figure targets. And so the dollar is breaking higher. That's really the key on the long-term chart. We're making that almost 2-year high or 1-year high now on the dollar index, and we're seeing here that we're bullish on these medium and short-term charts with upside targets to play for in the short term. Looks like the dollar will go some 1.5% higher from here in the short term. And looking at the euro, that means, of course, that we're seeing euro weakness. These downside targets being met at 115, and we're seeing that the euro just falling away there, again making a 12-month low against that stronger dollar. Against the yen, the dollar is looking stronger again, holding that 111 level and really breaking, testing now to 2-year highs, 2.5-year highs. So we're seeing that dollar strength really showing up there. Sterling fell away this week against the dollar. Seen a bit of recovery this morning, so we are holding the short-term bull trend that we crossed a few days ago, and that's the recovery showing up there. But of course we have made the lower lows, so sterling starting to look more bearish, and that 150 target now looking like it's off the cards. We're looking to these shorter term targets back to the low 130s. Looking at sterling against the euro, we're sitting at 117.44, just edging higher against the euro. The recovery quite strong here actually after that fall that we saw last week, so looking better there. Looking at Bitcoin, we're above the $50,000 level, still bullish on all three time frames. The targets of Bitcoin is still $83,000, and so that's what we're looking to, bullish on all three time frames. Found support on the cloud, which is really quite key. The S&P 500 index is up 0.4% yesterday, finding some cloud support on the medium-term chart, but still bearish on that short term. So we've got a trend tussle going on here. The upside target's still in train, but we do have this medium-term downside target, some 7% lower and 5% lower on the short-term chart. So we'll need to watch US markets in that regard. And the Nasdaq also still bearish below the cloud. The futures this morning, we're seeing the S&P future up 0.5% and the Nasdaq future up 1%. So it does imply that we're going to see markets opening higher. That means that the VIX volatility is actually lower, back below the cloud. Of course, remembering that this is the fear index, the lower we go, the happier the market is. So for the moment, the fear index is under control. Looking at the FTSE future, up 0.8% at the moment. The DAX in Germany up 1%. Not enough to take the market bullish. We're still bearish in that medium and short-term charts with downside targets still to play for, some 4% lower. This 9% lower target activated. Of course, the long-term targets are still in place. So it looks like we might fall before we rise at the least. The CAC Quarant is down 0.8%. Japan was little changed, and it's interesting that we had that big move in August, and we've really retraced most of that move. Back to cloud support. Of course, the Japanese will be looking at the Ichimoku clouds quite closely, but short term we are lower. Looking at Hong Kong, it's up 3%, so market's happier there, and the Evergrande situation just looking a little bit more under control. The Shanghai Composite Index also up, but not enough to put us back into short-term bullish territory. And the Sensex in India is up 1%, still looking one of the most strong markets in Asia. It's just really looking very positive with a 50% upside target on the long-term chart, and trends all holding. The Aussie market was up 0.7%. We will take a look at the energy mix. I can see here there's quite a lot of red on the screen this morning, and the Aussie market was up, but the energy mix looking lower, and as I say, we'll take a look at that. Coffee was up 1.4%, bullish on all three time frames. Got big targets to play for here on coffee, and sugar also looking strong. We're seeing softs actually starting to look pretty strong. Wheat, we've got good upside targets there as well. Corn, less strong. We are seeing still subdued pricing on corn, but the other soft looking pretty strong. Gold is up to 1761, not enough to really push the chart back into bullish territory. Precious metals really have suffered this past week or two, and that's really down to the stronger dollar having an impact. Looking at silver, we are up 0.25% this morning, but again, silver has been in the doldrums for the best part of a year, and the medium-term trend is lower. We are looking a bit stronger on the short term. Platinum and palladium have been badly hit in the last several weeks, but we've seen a strong recovery yesterday in platinum, but not enough to take the medium-term chart bullish. And palladium has had a real sell-off, and the long-term picture on palladium looking less good there as well, with downside targets much lower. So that's not a good move. US 10-year yield sitting at 1.53% on the 10-year. We've got this 175 and 179 targets to play for. That takes us back to the highs that we saw back in April, and we are back into medium-term bullish territory. So bullish on all three time frames. So we are just seeing that bullishness there. The 30-year yield sitting at 2.08%, just about to cross into bullish territory on the medium-term chart. Not quite as bullish as the 10-year yield. And German bonds, this is the Bund future. The real worry here is if we break below this trend, that will be like a 20-year trend broken on bond yields. So that on bond pricing, which will of course send yields much higher. Looking at the energy mix, a lot of red on the screen this morning. Big sell-offs. We start by looking at Brent Crude, down nearly 2%, taking us into potentially bearish territory on the 60-minute chart. This is my daily and my 60-minute chart, medium term, short term, and then the daily, 60-minute and 1 minute. These are the very short-term targets on the crude. If you're trading crude oil, these are the charts you really need to be looking at on the short term. WTI down by 2% as well, pushing to those targets, and we are in bearish territory there, so that's quite key. US nat gas falling right back. So we've really seen big falls here on Natty. We're down from 6.5 down to 5.5. We've given up $1 in the last day or two. So that's really strong reaction there. Coal also similarly has had a really big sell-off, taking us to short-term bearish as well. Emissions down 0.3%, and again falling into bearish territory on the medium-term chart with the targets. Again, if you're trading emissions, keep an eye on these 1 minute targets. We do still have the long-term upside targets for emissions, but for the short term, we are looking lower. UK emissions actually bucking the trend, up 0.86%, but they did fall off very sharply yesterday, so that's quite key as well. The big story, of course, lately has been gas. Gas prices on NBP front month were at 400. We're now back to 228. So that's a massive move in a couple of days. So we've really come right back to cloud support. This is all on Putin saying he's going to open up gas to European markets, of course. But the interesting thing is the reaction and what happens now. Keep an eye on your 1 minute charts, especially on OTC data. That's going to be quite key. And if we look at NBP, that's also really interesting. Finding support here on the 60-minute chart, really right on the cloud, and we do have some upside reactive targets. Can we go higher? We're seeing a lot of volatility in these pricing, of course. That's going to make trading it a real challenge, and the 1 minute point and figure targets will be your friend. German power down 7%, back to the 129 level. So again, a massive engulfing candle there on the daily chart. So bearish engulfing candle. No big surprises that we're falling lower, but we might be just finding support around the cloud here. Again, the 1 minute targets are going to be your friend here, and that's what you need to watch. We've got these downside targets. Really interestingly, this one given yesterday, and then that massive move. This is the 1 minute targets. Keep an eye on your OTC data for there as well. And we're seeing across the board big falls in other power markets this morning, so no big surprises there. It's what happens next. We find support, we get a reaction. Do we then go lower or do we then go higher? This is the game now that we have to wait and watch, see what happens. That's it for today. Until Monday, have a great weekend. Happy charting. See you then.